I'm going to title my talk this morning, Meditating with Tension, Agitation, and maybe even Triggers. In reflective meditation, we often say that you don't need to settle or stabilize yourself first in order to meditate and reflect. And that's true. You can begin right in the middle of the mess. And also, sometimes you find you do need to settle first, or at least partially or differently than you hoped. And we don't see that as a failure. It can be a wise way to respond to conditions. So I find it hard to talk about tension, agitation, and even triggers. And when I say triggers here, a very simple definition is reacting to something now with the full weight of your history, that you have history with it behind it. So it amplifies something. But it's harder to talk about these states when you're tense, agitated, and possibly triggered. And right now, many of us are. In my world, many of us are. And I notice even with myself, I'm much more easily ready to defend myself or to defend others. It's just kind of really close to the surface. So when we talk about meditating with these states of mind and body, I do want to start with being honest. Sometimes sitting down with what's activating us can increase the intensity. Sometimes another process unfolds, clarity, softening, insight, but sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the only thing that grows is being less aversive with what's activating us. So in reflective meditation, we try not to make promises. So I really want to be clear. I'm not like saying if you sit in the mess will go away. We encourage learning through your own experimentation and then developing confidence with what you learn. And the Buddhist teaching, this is investigation and discernment, which is the Buddhist teaching of Dhammavicaya. And they pair these two, investigation and discernment, together. So the pattern that I do know well, and it does often happen when I sit with these states, they intensify at first. Often my stories get louder, my body gets tighter. But if I do have the capacity to stay, which is something that is developed over time with reflective meditation practice, almost reliably, something eventually reveals itself, something else. Often it's not just the activation or the trigger or the reaction, it's hurt or disappointment or shame or sadness. There's often a lot of things underneath what I'm activated about. And we heard this yesterday at our daily online meditation. Another example of the trajectory is the intensity isn't there. Something soothing's there right away. Colors or images or uplifts or downshifts. And I think these start to happen more reliably in the reflective meditation practice when we're able to sit with more of what's actually going on for us. I'm just going to mute. Okay. But the other thing that I notice with this direction is, I have seen and I've experienced other trajectories with meditating with these kinds of states. Maybe the shift doesn't come on the cushion in the meditation. Maybe something changes in the reflection afterwards. Or maybe it comes during a dream at night, or the next morning at breakfast. Or even sometimes I don't notice something change until I have a next interaction where I'm more tense or aversive. And I notice I'm a little bit less so, or less certain about my own point of view. And I even have courage to take different actions. So I think this is an important point about letting in, settling, and stabilizing into these states and how they commingle. meditation and reflection works over time, across time. It's not always immediate. So I'm going to bring in a kind of example. It's not mine, but I'm going to make it ours. So let's say you set up an appointment to get your hair done. Now, that is an old-fashioned phrase that I inherited from my mom who got her hair done. And maybe some of us still do, but really it's just a haircut. So, Bill, if you're on the call, don't worry about having to get your hair done. Um, but in this example, the stylist has a habit of changing the appointment, your appointment, a day or two beforehand, and gives you lots of texts. And you don't love this, but you have some flexibility around it, and you can usually accommodate it. If you can, you do. But this time she asks you if you can come at 10 instead of 10:30, and you agree. And the night before, she texts you, see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. And you write back and you say, we changed it to 10:30. And she replies that she didn't change it, but she'll accommodate you and she'll see you at 10. And, just what you're left with, just this simple, scenario, it's wrong. You have proof you were being generous with her needs. It's hard to let go. Now you don't even want her massaging your scalp or engaging in having your hair done kind of talk while she works. So I'm going to call this a small irritant. Some may even derogatorily call it nitpicky. But these kinds of things are going on while other seemingly and actually really large triggers and activations are affecting us, maybe affecting us. And these all don't come just neatly in order, one at a time. As I was writing this, I had this fantasy. Oh, I wish they would just come one at a time so I could address each irritant equally, mindfully, and then check them off my list and never have to deal with them again. But it doesn't happen that way, right? So it brings me to another interesting point, is that reflective meditation is a practice that helps mix up all these triggers and activations so that we don't see them so separately. And that provides more freeing up, more untangling, more unraveling in meditation and reflection, and new forms, new perspectives to emerge. So part of all of this direction is knowing when to give these irritants, these triggers, airtime that they need. And in doing so, that you can be in the mind and body you have and think and act according to your values. So the question arises for me, not abstractly, but practically. Are you open to thinking about these picky, irritating experiences in your meditation along with the other ones that are going on? Or do you prefer to hold them and think about them later outside meditation in a different time to reflect upon them? And are you resourced enough today? And this is, I think, a good question to sit with them and to stay with them in your meditation. And often you don't know this beforehand. So, if you have the willingness to try, which I always encourage, can you give yourself permission to change your mind and to choose something else and to not make that a failing? Because maybe you need to open your eyes or feel your feet or move your body or do a walking meditation or skip formal practice today. Can you see all of those as part of caring for your dukkha, for the dukkha of the world? So as I see it, this teaching of Dhammavicaya, of investigation and discernment, it's not about pushing through intensity or proving your capacity. It's more about recognizing what genuinely supports where you're at and where you're coming from and where you're going. Sometimes it means staying close to your experience, and other times it means stepping back from it, taking time out, getting a little bit more distance. And really, I think in a simple way of saying it, it's learning to know that difference. when to stay close and when to have some distance. Okay, right at 10 after the hour. I think I'm finished here with the Dharma talk.